guys, it's Jody. Today's video, we are going to be in experimentation mode. If you didn't see by the caption already, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I just haven't been able to get to. So what we're going to be using today is Owatrol. I've got, I use my Australian Floetrol as Activator. I use the US Floetrol as Activator because I'm here in the US. But I've had a lot of questions about, does Owatrol work as a cell activator? And I don't know the answer. I mean, I do now after a lot of experimentation. And I've come up with kind of 3 different recipes. Kind of the base recipe is the same, but it's kind of taking out one component and using a different one, and we'll get more into that into the video. I know others have used it before in the past. I don't how they've used it. This was just my own experimentations. And I kind of framed it around a little bit my US Floetrol, where I use the Minwax and the glue and all that stuff. So I kind of framed it that way. I did try it by itself, the Owatrol, just at a really high ratio with the titanium white, the Amsterdam titanium white, and then adding a lot of water, and it wouldn't do anything for me. So if you can get it to work, that's awesome. But the recipe and what I'm going to show you here in this video is the best that I've found to make similar cells. It's never going to be exact as the Australian, and the US Floetrol acts differently, and this Owatrol acts even more differently that I'm finding out. So I kind of wanted to explain just a little bit the 3 different recipes that we're going to be testing. This is going to be a long video, disclaimer. I don't know how long, but this is going to be a little bit longer because we're going to be doing 6 pieces. So, and I'm going to speed through some of them, but as you saw, the Owatrol is the base. So with the 3 recipes that I kind of came up with, they're very similar. It's just the one component is an oil base that you kind of add in, similar to my US Floetrol recipe where you use the Minwax pre-stain. I have 3 different options that, work very similarly. And there may be more options that I don't know of that I can't get here, but maybe, you can in Europe. And if I haven't said that already, the Owatrol is the European version of the Floetrol, like the Flood Floetrol that we get here in the US, and then the Flood Australian Floetrol that is in Australia. Have I confused you all yet? I know a lot of you do know what Owatrol is, but I just wanted to be specific for anybody who was like, what is this Owatrol? Why is she working on it? So I want to show you some of the blow tests and swipe tests that I did earlier. I do it on freezer paper really quickly just to see, as I'm kind of mixing and being the mad scientist. So I want to take you, it's behind me, I'm going to take you there and kind of show you, and then I'm going to walk you through all the ingredients and the recipe and how I put it together, and then we're going to paint. So here we go. Now, if I didn't mention this already, here's my lovely freezer paper and all my little experiments. I have a few others that are sitting on the floor, but these were the final ones where I was like, you know what, I can totally work with this. But the recipe, the 3 recipes are very similar. There's just one component that's different, like I mentioned, and it is oil based. I felt like there needed to be an oil base similar to my US Floetrol recipe where we use the Minwax pre-stain, and I actually use it in one of them. And you may have ingredients over in Europe that we don't have here that may work just as nicely. So this is going to be a starting point anyway, and you can build upon it. So as I kind of work through and kind of show you, this was a kind of a bloom blowout with silicone. I just used 1 drop, and then the Minwax pre-stain here was that one. And then this was also the Minwax pre-stain. This worked out really nicely. This was I actually used oil Owatrol with the Easy Flow Owatrol, and that was very promising. Here's another one. I was adding water, so some of them, this was probably before, and then this was a little bit, I added a little bit more water to get the consistency, and then this was another oil Owatrol. And then here was a swipe. You can kind of see it really, it wanted to react. And this was another oil Owatrol swipe. This one was another one, but it got kind of got into a little accident, so we'll just ignore that one. This one is the Minwax Pre-Stain, which was pretty promising. So if you have a pre-conditioner, a pre-stain conditioner similar over there, this might work as well. Or if you can get the Minwax. But that was a swipe. And then this was the silicone swipe, which I thought was really cool. I only used 1 drop of silicone, and we'll get to the recipe in a minute. You know, if you want to experiment with this, try maybe 2 or 3. I've just learned that silicone for me, less is more. So I only used 1 drop and I got some really neat results there. So now I want to take you over and kind of show you all the components, you know, what we're going to be using for the colors and then the cell activators themselves. So, all right, I'm going to pan over everything just to kind of explain everything that was used in there. This will also be at the end of the video in snapshots if you want to take pictures of it. But again, we're using the Owatrol as our base for the cell activator. So I have this, and I used Amsterdam titanium white. Amsterdam seems to work the best in any cell activator that I've used. It's super celly, so I like to stick with Amsterdam. And then I did throw in some glue. I used the Line Co. If you have a different glue, you can try it and see how it works for you. This is what I had here. And then distilled water. I always use distilled water as opposed to tap water. And then in one recipe, I used silicone. In another recipe, I used drops of the Owatrol oil. And then in another recipe, I used the Minwax Pre-Stain Conditioner. So these are all the components that were in the recipes that we're going to try out today. And like I said with the oil, the 3 oil over here, I just kind of substituted. So the first recipe was, you know, the silicone with all of this. And then the second recipe did not have silicone. It had the oil and then all of this. And then the third recipe had some of this, you know, with the distilled water and then all of this. And for the recipe, I'm just going to verbally say it here, and then I'll show you the consistencies of all 3 of them. The basic recipe I started with for all 3 consist of these. I started at 4 parts. So in my case, I used 4 teaspoons of the Owatrol, and then 1 part, which is 1 teaspoon for me, so 4 to 1. Of the Amsterdam titanium white, similar to how I start my other, the Australian Floetrol and the US Floetrol 4 to 1 ratio. And then the glue, I actually added a little bit more glue in. I added 2 teaspoons of glue. The water is where it gets tricky. I started with 1 teaspoon and I've probably got upwards of 3 now into it. I didn't write it down. I just kept hitting, you know, putting in dropper full, just getting it. So I don't think that that matters, you know, as you experiment with it, but start with 1 and work your way up. You know, you can add upwards of 3, maybe even 4 if you want it super duper duper thin, but this is what worked for me in the environment I'm in. So that was kind of the base recipe for all 3 of these. And then for the first recipe, then I added 1 drop of silicone. And then for the second recipe, I added 5 drops of this Owatrol oil. Okay, second recipe. And then the third recipe, I used 5 drops of this Minwax Pre-Stain. This was everything that I had here to try out. I did order this extra. So that's basically the recipes that we're going to test today. Now let me show you the consistencies of all of them. Hope this isn't confusing for you. I didn't put all 3 oils in one. However, that might be an interesting mix. If you want to try it, go for it. I was just trying to see what might work better. And then I thought, oh, you know what? I'm just going to show all 3, but you know, the base recipe, I wanted to start with a base and then just kind of add and take away, or if you want to add more drops, that's fine too. I want this to be a starting point for you to go on and experiment and see where you can take the Owatrol, because it does seem to be able to work nicely. I'm really excited to get it on a bigger, you know, a little bit bigger canvas than just the blow test that I do on the freezer paper. So this first one, and when I say I was adding drops of water, I had it in a little container here, and I was just taking some with my dropper and adding it in. I mean, however you decide to mix it, go for it. All right, so this recipe is that base recipe and then 1 drop of silicone. And it's pretty thin. Like, it's not really leaving a mound. And if you can see the trace, it's like maybe a 1/4 second to a 1/2 second trace. That's how thin I got it. And I mean, I kept adding water and adding water. And usually I don't like to use water, but Amsterdam paint can handle water. So I wasn't worried about that. Now this second one, and they're all pretty similar in consistency. The second one is the Owatrol, the base recipe, and then adding 5 drops of that oil Owatrol that you saw in that container. And I believe it comes in a smaller container, but for me, it wasn't available, so I had to buy this big this big honkin' one. And this actually looks a little bit thinner. If you can see that, if the camera's picking up, there really isn't a mound that's being left. This is thinner than the previous one. I mean, maybe like a 1/2 second trace, if that. It's almost like water, almost. So there's that one. And then this third one is the Owatrol, the base recipe with the Minwax pre-stain conditioner. And you may have a different brand of a pre-stain conditioner than we have Minwax here. So I encourage you to try what you have available to you locally. This is what I have available to me locally to try. All right, this, yeah. This is probably as thin as the second one I showed you. The first one is just a hair, and I mean a hair thicker. But this, if you can see the consistency, it's not really leaving a mound, and it's like a 1/2 second trace. I can't really tell on the traces, but that's how thin I had to get this in order for it to see the cells that I wanted to see. So those are the 3 that we're going to play with today. Now my colors, you probably already know my colors because they're my test colors. But I mixed everything with Owatrol because I've used it as a pouring medium years ago when I first started, before the blooms even came out. I was using both Floetrol that we get here and then this Owatrol. I had gotten a small container on Amazon to try it as a pouring medium. So I've used it in that capacity as a pouring medium, but never as a cell activator. So I just decided to use it as a pouring medium here, so why not? All right, so if you're not new to my channel, you already know these colors. This first color here is PBO Studio Acrylics, the iridescent blue-green, and it is mixed. I mixed the same way I mix all my other paints, so nothing changed there. I just add in, and down in the description box below, I always have kind of like a rough estimate how I mix, so if you want to take a look there. But here's the consistency of that. Again, this is just Owatrol and this paint here. There's that one. And then this guy is quinacridone nickel azo gold. This is the heavy body. Again, this is Owatrol, just mixed with that. I just mixed them a little bit earlier. I noticed the longer they sit, the darker they get. So, but here's that consistency, really nice consistency. And then this third one here is my favorite purple color combo. I started with the golden, the permanent violet dark. Again, this is heavy body. And then, I mixed it with the Owatrol, and then I added just a little squirt of the PBO Studio Acrylics, the iridescent blue-black. And this one is just a touch thicker because I had 2 different paints in there. there's that consistency. So again, all of these three colors are mixed just with the Owatrol as pouring medium. So that's what we're going to use to test. And I'm going to use my vinyl record testers here. So we're going to do 6 of them. I may speed through some of it just because it can get monotonous putting the pillow on and the colors and all that good stuff. You really want to see we want to see the reaction, how it reacts on here, and also how it spins out and how, you know, the final piece ends up. So that's what we're going to head to next. So let's go get started. All right, as I said, we're gonna work on these. I haven't done anything special with them. I didn't even tape up the back, but I did just put a little tape in there, and I forgot to mention the pillow. The pillow we're gonna be using for all of these is just the PPG Multi Pro. If you have something else you use, by all means, go ahead and use it. I've got enough of this on my workbench here to, oops, that's not in focus, Joe. I just wanted to give you the consistency of it, but we're going to do everything out of the spinner box today. I'm going to go ahead and put the pillow down just right in the middle here. We'll get that spread out. I'm going to put the colors on. This is what I'm going to do for all 6. So we're going to do 3 blooms and 3 swipes, and it's all going to be done in here. So I'm going to put on the bloom, and I'm going to just blow it off camera. You've seen me blow it out in all my other videos. I want to kind of go through this a bit more quickly because we're going to spin it out, check it out, and I know this video is going to be kind of long. So I'm going to put down the colors for this first bloom. All right, again, this is the base Owatrol recipe mixed with the oil Owatrol, the 5 drops. Put some on this. Since it's thin, it sinks down pretty fast, so I'm going to actually... All right, I kind of blew a little bit in the middle there. You see how it's kind of just kind of hanging around. It may sink more, it may not, but I'm going to do a little bit of modifications on this, and then we're going to spin it out. That's actually sinking down nicely. Again, this is this was the Owatrol, the base with the oil Owatrol added to it, and this is looking really nice. I'm excited to spin this out. Let's do this. Still got a little bit of movement in the middle, so I'm just trying to get it stretched out so it dries nicely. So I'm losing some of my petals, but these are just tests, and I mean, look at how nicely this looks so far. I mean, gorgeous. This is probably my favorite petal right here, but these cells in here, and it looks like it's sinking down more in the middle as it's being stretched out. So this is definitely a viable option. All right. I do have just a little bit of movement, but you know what? I'm going to just give it one more spin, and then we'll move on to the next one. This one's done. This is a winner chicken dinner. I'm going to go put this one down, and then we're going to start the swipe on this one. All right. I'm going to use these 2 palette knives. I'm going to start with this one, and I will get it loaded up, and I will show you what I have. All right, I've got the cell activator. It's the Owatrol, the one with the oil Owatrol in it first, and I've got the purple, then the blue, then the nickel azo gold. right, amazingly awesome cell action. And I want to point something out here. This cell action is gotten a lot better, and I'm wondering if when I first I mixed up all of 3 of these today, and then I did my test on the freezer paper really quickly. I know it's on a smaller scale, but these just look like they're responding really well. So I'm wondering if you mix it up and you let it sit for, you let the cell activator sit for like an hour or 2, maybe 3, to kind of marinate, for lack of a better word, because this is freaking amazing. This did not look like what I thought it would be. This is responding so much better. So I'm going to add just a little bit more pillow, and then we're going to spin this out. This is absolutely amazing. I'm like in awe right here. I've still got a little bit of movement, but you know what? I'm just gonna I don't want to lose a lot more of the composition. So we're gonna experiment and see what happens. I'm gonna go put this on, and we're gonna get started with the next cell activator. These 2 that we just did were the with the oil Owatrol mixed with the Owatrol base that we had. Now this one we're going to do here, we're going to bloom on. This is the Owatrol base mixed with the Minwax pre-stain conditioner. That's what that one looks like. I blew it out, and then I just kind of took my straw a little bit. In the middle there. I'm gonna just do a little bit of mods, and then we're gonna spin this out. Again, this is the Owatrol base with the Minwax pre-stain conditioner as part of the cell activator for the oil portion. That is filling in really nicely. Let's spin this out. I think that's pretty good. I got a little bit of movement still in the middle, but we're going to let it be. This right here is my favorite petal ever. If you can kind of see the depth of that. Holy cow. All right, this is another winner chicken dinner. Again, this was the Minwax pre-stain was the oil that was added into the Owatrol cell activator mix. So I'm going to put this over with the others, and then we're going to swipe with this cell activator, but this is looking so super cool. Really nice cell action here. Again, I feel like there's a thing about mixing up the cell activator and letting it rest, an hour or 2, maybe 3, for it to marinate, because this, I mean, like we saw with the other one, this is the Minwax pre-stain. Look at those bubblicious cells. So super cool. We're going to spin this out now. at those cells. I still got a little bit of movement, but we're gonna let it be because I don't want to lose anymore. I really want to see how this dries. So I'm gonna put this with the other, and we're gonna start the next. All right, we are now moving on to the final cell activator recipe, the one with the silicone in it, the 1 drop of silicone. So I'm gonna get this prepared, and we'll do a bloom first, and then we'll do a swipe. This actually turned out kind of nice for 1 drop of silicone in there. And let's spin this out and see what happens. A little different, but I mean, I would still call this a bloom. Some of the cells in there are really neat. I'm going to put this to the side, and then we're going to swipe with this cell activator for our last piece. That swiped super nice. Look at those cells in there. I mean, it's more traditional silicone cells, but absolutely amazing. Let's spin this out. So super cool. I am digging the cells in here. It's definitely different than the other two, but it's still really, really, really cool. I'm going to put this over, and then I'm going to give you the flyover of all these pieces. All right, here we have, this is the first bloom that we did with the oil Owatrol mixed with the Owatrol base for the cell activator. Look at that. I mean, I want to start using this. This is just the coolest. And I totally think, and what I was, whoops, come on, focus. What I was worried about right in there, it kind of sank down a little bit more, so it's not obtuse, that white. It actually looks really super cool. All right, there's the first one. And here is the swipe that we did with the oil that was in there, the oil, say that 3 times, oil Owatrol. Mixed with the Owatrol base for the cell activator. Oh, look at that, looks like drops of water. So cool. So far everything's holding up, the cells. I'm so excited to see how all this dries. I'm not really worried about, I mean, I know I didn't take some pillow off, so we might get a little bit of cracking, but not worried about that right now. Oh, look at that. This was now the Minwax pre-stain that I added for the oil with the Owatrol base. Oh, this is so cool. I don't know if you guys can get the Minwax pre-stain in in Europe or if it's just a US thing, but if you should probably have something similar. So I encourage you to try, if you don't want to try the oil Owatrol. That right there is probably my favorite petal. It is epic. Just those colors and how it swirls. I love that. And again, with the white, it's sinking the way I want it to, so it's not making those weird, obtuse, you know, white marks. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm so excited to see how this dries. And then over here we have the swipe that we just did with the Minwax pre-stain for the oil. I love, those look like jewels right there. Just the coolest. I didn't want to lose a lot of all this. It was kind of going off, but I am so excited to see how these dry. All right, let's go check out the silicone ones. All right, and finally here is the bloom we did with the silicone oil in our Owatrol base cell activator. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, you can definitely use it for a bloom, silicone oil if you want to. I know the whole idea of the bloom was to get away from silicone, but it can be used. Clearly, it's a little bit different. The cells are super cool though. I'm really excited to see how this dries. And I think 1 drop was good, but you know, if you want to try 2 or maybe 3, go for it. And then here is the swipe we just did. I mean, super celly. I got a lot of purple in there. I was trying to keep more of the color, but this, again, the cells are just super cool. And this definitely works with palette knife swipes. I'm sure it would work more traditional swipes where you lay all the colors down on you know, on your canvas and then swipe with your cell activator. That would definitely work as well. So I don't see, all 3 of these have worked out really well. I'm super excited to see how all of these dry. So I will be back once they are dried to give you my final thoughts. All right, I am back to show you all the dried results and everything, how everything dried. Everything dried beautifully. And I'm going to kind of go over what we used again in the video, just kind of as a recap. But if you remember, we used the Owatrol itself as the pouring medium, just mixed with the 3 colors we used for the pouring medium for the blooms and the swipes that we did. And then we had the different cell activators. We had 3, and they were all kind of an Owatrol base. We had a base going on. We just changed the oil portion of it. And again, this will be in the description box down below. And you know, if anybody wants me to do a quick mixing video of one of them, because really you would just sub out the oil portion, you know, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments below. But without further ado, let's get into each one and how they dried. So the first set that we used, we did the Owatrol, the base of the cell activator with the Owatrol oil. This was actually the Owatrol oil. I know that they sell this in smaller containers. This was the only one that I was able to get, so I have a big one. But this is how it dried. I mean, it dried exactly how you saw it wet. I mean, these cells just held on and everything is just gorgeous. And you can even see those little micro cells in there. Absolutely love this. So this turned out really nice for the cell activator. That one, and then this was the swipe that we did using the Owatrol oil for the oil portion of the cell activator. And again, it just dried beautifully. Those cells didn't change, didn't move around, was the right thickness. And that might be, you know, that might be something you need to play with, depending on your environment. If you're in a cooler environment, things tend to get a little bit thicker, or if you're in a warmer environment, you need to, you know, maybe thin it out a little bit more with some more water. That's something that's going to need to be played with a little bit, but you know, these recipes are kind of like a guide to a starting point. So there's this one. Now we're going to move on to the second recipe that we tested. All right, this one we started with the Owatrol base in the cell activator, and then the oil was the Minwax pre-stain wood conditioner. I don't know if you can get this, or you know, if you have something similar that you want to try, but I just thought I'd give it a try and see how it worked out. And it worked out really nicely. I mean, it just dried beautifully. Look at this. Look at all these amazing cells. It dried exactly how you saw it wet. And you can see the nice shimmer in there from that PBO, the blue-green. And this stayed. This is probably my favorite. There's so much depth to it right there. Love that. This one's a winner chicken dinner. All right, and then here is the swipe that we did with that same cell activator. Again, everything stayed the same. Everything dried just beautifully. I didn't get any cracks. I didn't get any movement. All right. And then now the third cell activator recipe that we did, it was again the Owatrol base, and then the oil portion was 1 drop of silicone. And this is what we came with. This, I think this is so cool. I'm not a huge fan of silicone since I've started, you know, the Bloom's technique and alternative ways to get cells. But this is definitely, you know, if you can't get any of these ingredients, silicone is going to work as well. It's different, but it does give you some really neat cells in there. And maybe you want to try adding 2 drops or 3 drops. To me, less is more when it comes to silicone. It never worked right for me. If I added too much, it was just insane. So I try to do less is more. But this dried really nicely. All right. And our swipe. This one got a little crazy. I mean, it definitely responded. There was a lot more purple in this piece, but down here, these really neat cells, and then up here, everything dried as you saw it wet. I love how it's kind of a little bit transparent. It just kind of, just how it blends together. It's just so super cool. So all in all, this experiment, not only with Owatrol being your pouring medium, but using these three different cell activator recipes, using Owatrol and some form of oil to go with it, it works. It works really, really well. So I would recommend this. I mean, you may need to play with the recipes a little bit depending on what's available to you, or again, like I said, your environment, if you need to thin things out a little bit more, the consistency, you just want it thin enough, you know, and you can do little tests on freezer paper to see how it's responding before you start using it in a painting, or use smaller pieces. And your pillow, I use just my regular PPG Multi-Pro. It's a bit more springy and it has a lot of stretchiness and give to it. If you're using something else, you know, if you're using Owatrol and then adding an acrylic paint to it, which you can do. I've done that with the Flood Floetrol here. It just doesn't have the buoyancy like a house paint does, but it can work. So it just may work differently, that's all. You know, just don't set your expectation that it's going to be one way. It may shift a little, it may not, but you know what, at the end of the day, have fun with it, and it definitely can work. So I hope you found this video helpful. I had a lot of fun experimenting with this, so thank you so much for the suggestion. With that, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.